The October 6th episode of Married at First Sight UK delivered what might be the most disturbing moment in the show's history, and honestly, it's left viewers questioning everything about how far this experiment should be allowed to go. Stephen, who has already shown himself to be selfish, cruel, and emotionally abusive, reached a new low when he called his wife Nelly a fucking idiot during their latest confrontation. The verbal abuse was shocking enough, but what happened next was even more concerning. Despite being called such horrible names by her husband, Nelly still chose to stay in the experiment. This isn't just relationship drama anymore. This is a pattern of escalating abuse that's becoming genuinely frightening to watch, and fans are demanding that producers step in immediately to protect Nelly from a man who clearly has no respect for her whatsoever. To understand just how devastating this moment was, we need to look at the journey that led Stephen and Nelly to this point. What started as a fairy tale wedding with declarations of love at first sight has turned into one of the most toxic relationships in MAFS UK history. Stephen has shown a consistent pattern of selfish and cruel behaviour that has only gotten worse with each episode. He abandoned Nelly when she was injured with a broken rib, bragged about sleeping with celebrities while she was in pain, called the situation laughable when confronted, and then exploded in an aggressive outburst that left everyone shocked. Each time Stephen's behaviour escalated, viewers hoped it would be the wake-up call that Nelly needed to walk away from this toxic situation. When he left her alone while she was hurt, fans thought surely she would see his true character. When he bragged about other women, people assumed she would realise she deserved better. When he had his explosive meltdown at the dinner party, everyone expected her to finally understand that this man was dangerous. But somehow, Nelly kept giving him chances, and Stephen kept proving that he didn't deserve them. The latest confrontation between Stephen and Nelly was the culmination of weeks of built-up tension and unresolved issues. Stephen's hollow apology after his dinner party outburst clearly hadn't fixed anything between them. If anything, it seemed to make things worse because it showed that Stephen was only sorry about the public backlash, not about the pain he had caused his wife. The underlying problems in their relationship, his selfishness, his lack of empathy, his explosive temper, were all still there, just waiting for the next trigger. When that trigger came, Stephen's reaction was worse than anyone could have imagined. Instead of trying to communicate like an adult or work through their problems constructively, Stephen resorted to name-calling and verbal abuse. Calling Nelly a fucking idiot wasn't just an insult, it was a deliberate attempt to tear down her self-worth and make her feel small. This is classic abusive behaviour designed to make the victim question their own judgment and feel like they deserve the treatment they're receiving. The impact of Stephen's verbal abuse on Nelly was heartbreaking to watch. This is a woman who has been trying so hard to make her marriage work, who has been patient and understanding even when Stephen was at his worst. To hear her husband call her such horrible names must have been devastating. Nelly's response, that she doesn't know who he is anymore, showed just how much Stephen's behaviour has changed from the man she thought she married. The person standing in front of her calling her names was a complete stranger compared to the charming man she met at the altar. What makes Nelly's statement even more tragic is that it suggests she's been holding on to hope that the real Stephen would come back. She's been making excuses for his behaviour, thinking that the man who abandoned her when she was hurt wasn't the real Stephen. The man who bragged about other women wasn't the real Stephen. The man who exploded at the dinner party wasn't the real Stephen. But now she's finally starting to realise that this cruel, abusive person might actually be who Stephen really is underneath all the charm and apologies. The most shocking part of the entire episode wasn't even Stephen's verbal abuse. It was the fact that both he and Nelly chose to stay in the experiment. After everything that has happened between them, after Stephen has shown repeatedly that he has no respect for his wife, after he literally called her a fucking idiot, they both decided to continue with their marriage. This decision has left viewers absolutely baffled and genuinely concerned for Nelly's well-being. Nelly's decision to stay is particularly concerning because it shows classic signs of someone trapped in an abusive relationship. She's been isolated from her support system, constantly told that the problems are her fault, and made to believe that things will get better if she just tries harder. Stephen's pattern of behaviour, abuse followed by apologies, followed by more abuse, is textbook manipulation designed to keep his victim confused and dependent on him for validation. The fan reaction to Stephen's verbal abuse has been absolutely furious, and rightfully so. Social media has exploded with demands for Stephen to be removed from the show immediately. Viewers are using words like disgusting, abusive, and dangerous to describe his behaviour. Many people are pointing out that calling your spouse names like fucking idiot crosses the line from relationship problems into verbal abuse, and that the show has a responsibility to protect Nelly from further harm. What's particularly infuriating fans is that Stephen's behaviour keeps escalating without any real consequences. He abandoned his injured wife, publicly humiliated her, had an explosive outburst, and now he's resorting to verbal abuse. Each time, he faces some criticism, but is allowed to continue in the experiment. Viewers are questioning whether the show is more interested in creating dramatic television than actually protecting the well-being of its participants. The experts are facing serious criticism for allowing this situation to continue. Many fans are arguing that they should have intervened much earlier, before Stephen's behaviour escalated to verbal abuse. The fact that both Stephen and Nelly were allowed to stay in the experiment after he called her such horrible names has raised questions about the show's duty of care to its participants. How much abuse does someone have to endure before the experts step in to protect them? Stephen's verbal abuse represents a dangerous escalation in his pattern of behaviour. Experts in domestic violence will tell you that abuse typically gets worse over time, not better. Stephen has already shown that he's willing to abandon his wife when she's hurt, publicly humiliate her, explode in anger when confronted, and now verbally abuse her. The question that everyone is asking is, what comes next? If Stephen is willing to call his wife a fucking idiot on camera, what is he saying to her when the cameras aren't rolling? The decision for both Stephen and Nelly to stay in the experiment sends a troubling message about what behaviour is acceptable in a marriage. By allowing Stephen to continue after verbally abusing his wife, the show is essentially saying that calling your spouse horrible names is just another relationship hurdle to overcome. This normalises abusive behaviour and could be dangerous for viewers who might be in similar situations in their own lives. For Nelly, the decision to stay represents a missed opportunity to show her own worth and set boundaries about how she deserves to be treated. Every time she gives Stephen another chance after he treats her badly, she's teaching him that his behaviour is acceptable. She's showing him that he can abandon her, humiliate her, explode at her, and even verbally abuse her, and she'll still be there. This pattern is incredibly dangerous and unlikely to lead to any positive outcome. As we move forward in the experiment, the question isn't whether Stephen and Nelly's marriage can be saved. It's whether Nelly can be saved from Stephen. His behaviour has crossed every line of decency and respect, and there's no indication that he's capable of change. Calling your wife a fucking idiot isn't a relationship problem that can be fixed with counselling. It's abusive behaviour that should have immediate consequences. Fans are hoping that someone will finally step in to protect Nelly before Stephen's behaviour escalates even further, because at this point, it's not a matter of if things will get worse, but when.